comic genius. He was responsible primarily for all the visual gags, the improvisations. He did a lot of the film editing. And surprisingly enough, Laurel and Hardy never walked into a movie with a script. Sure, they had an idea, but it wasn't much more than that, just an idea. Until the cameras rolled, and then the magic really began. The thing that makes Laurel and Hardy very separate from any of their competition at the time were their mannerisms. For example, the eye blink of Stan's. Instead of doing the conventional take of other comedians who rear back in reaction of astonishment, Stan takes very slowly, like closing his eyes for a long second and then opening them wide as if his eyelids had just come unglued. He then arches his eyebrows and narrows them again in a desperate simulation of thought. The yards and yards of film used in one of Ollie's eye takes to the camera began as a mannerism, but Stan actually discovered the advantage of using Hardy's camera looks as holds. In the theater, a comedian very soon learns how to hold. When he gets through a laugh, he does not begin to speak until the next line or until the laughter dies down. But when you're making a film, there's no audience to work with. So Stan would go to the theaters and time the laughs. He'd get an average, and when editing the film, he'd either extend or diminish the amount of footage of Ollie's looks to the camera. So the holds became perfectly functional as camera looks and also ensured that the dialogue would not be buried by laughter. The importance of improvisation and spontaneity in their films made it necessary for Laurel and Hardy to team with people they felt comfortable with. And here's one of them, James Finlayson. You'll recognize him in many of the Laurel and Hardy films, but he's just one of a handful of actors and actresses that worked in 20, 30, even 47 times for one of them. It was 1929, and it was a big business making films. But most of the films were still silent, although The Jazz Singer, the first feature-length film with synchronized dialogue and music, premiered 2 years earlier. Movie houses were still reluctant to install the sound equipment. It was expensive, and they still weren't sure that it would catch on. We know how that story ended. In 1929, Laurel and Hardy released one of their final silent films, Double Whoopee. Double Whoopee, 40 years later, in 1969, was to be the first silent film in history to be transferred to sound, including voice synchronization. Chuck McCann, the superb Laurel and Hardy mimic, provided both voices. It also has the distinction, as you can see, of being the very first screen appearance of Jean Harlow. It was 1929, and the world anxiously awaited to find out what Stan and Ollie sounded like. Well, the movie was appropriately called Unaccustomed as We Are, and their voices were perfect. Many actors and actresses at the time could not convert from silent to talking pictures. Their voices just didn't match their physical appearance. But with Laurel and Hardy, it was not the case. Oliver, the grand, leisurely Southern gentleman with all his politeness. And Stan, well, he had an accent somewhere between England and Hollywood. Delivery made it work. And dialogue became one more interesting feature of every Laurel and Hardy comedy. The second sound feature released was called Birthmarks. Here's a clip from Birthmarks that shows that although sound was involved, the two still relied heavily on visual comedy.
Where are you going to sleep?
I'm going to sleep up there, of course.
Well, we can't get up there with this instrument.
I don't care about the instrument. I'm the manager of the act.
I'm going to watch my fiddle. I'm
I
not going
don't
to let
care
that
anything
go
about it.
anywhere.
There's people sleeping here. You'll have to keep quiet.
I'm sorry.
Good night.
Good night.
Get up there and let's go to bed.
Don't shush me.
You broke my head. Now take your shoes off and get up there and go to sleep.
Put your foot in there. When I push you up, grab it. That's right. Get over there. Come on. Now put your foot.
This is our place. Get up there. Come on, you son. Get up on my back. Now lay down. Don't you hit me like that, I'll break your neck. Excuse me. Now hold my hand.
By 1930, Laurel and Hardy's popularity was worldwide, and they often had to remake their films with English, Spanish, and French casts, as was the case in this 1930 favorite, Hog Wild.
Where is my hat?
Well, why don't you look for it?
Why don't I look for it? I've looked everywhere.
Everywhere?
Yes, everywhere that a hat might be. That's the trouble with you wives. You're always hiding things so we husbands can't find them. Why, I can't even find the telephone in this house. But I'll find that hat if it's the last thing I do. Yoo-hoo! Tilly! Have you seen my hat?
Why,
Don't stand there stuttering. Have you seen my hat?
Of course she's seen your hat. You may leave.
There you are. How do you expect me to uphold the dignity of my home when you belittle me in front of the servants? This has gone far enough. If I don't find that hat, I'm leaving this house, never to darken its doors again. I don't find it, have a cab.
Oh, you found it.
Yes. What was it doing under the bed?
Now, where are you going?
Oh, I have an appointment with Stanley.
What about our radio?
Well, what about it?
It hasn't worked in 3 months. Just because you've been too indisposed to put up an aerial.
I'll put it up tomorrow.
You'll put it up today, right now.
I thought you were going to meet me.
I was. But I've got to put the aerial up. Mrs. Hardy wants to get Japan.
Gee, I'd like to hear Japan, too. Do you mind if I help you?
I don't mind. That is, if you'll help me. Back your car in. Get some water! Water! Pick that ladder up. Oh! Pick up the ladder. Well, come on, pick up those things. The quicker we get the aerial up, the quicker we get away. Careful.
Have you got everything?
Everything. We don't have to go down for a thing. Put one of those poles on that end.
Hey, what did you go down for?
Put that in on that pole. Go ahead. Oh! Take that. I think you'd better go in the house, and I'll pass the wire down to you. Oh, go ahead. Post A.
Radio go.
I should say not. I'll get that thing working if it's the last thing I do. Come on. Now listen. If you don't be careful, I'm gonna break your neck. Oh, don't cry over me, Tia. I'm not hurt.
I'm not crying over you. The man came and took the radio away.
Laurel and Hardy were constantly reworking the same material. As we saw in the second talking picture, they had a hard time getting into bed. Well, it was the same thing in their first full-length motion picture, Pardon Us. And here they are in jail again in Flying Deuces.
There's a nice pickle we're in. Shot at sunrise.
I hope it's cloudy tomorrow.
And Stan's found something else to do with the bed. Another favorite device is Oliver falling in love, losing his love, and deciding life just isn't worth living anymore.
Well, goodbye, Ollie.
Goodbye, Stan.
Good luck.
Where are you going?
Well, I don't want to get my name dragged into this. What's this for?
Now, when I count 3, we'll both jump in.
What have I got to jump in there for? I'm not in love.
So that's the kind of a guy you are. After all I've done for you, you let me jump in there alone. Do you realize that after I'm gone, that you just go on living by yourself? People would stare at you and wonder what you are, and I wouldn't be here to tell them. There'd be no one to protect you. Do you want that to happen to you?
I never thought of that. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings, Ollie. I didn't mean to be so dispolite.
That's all right, Stanley. Let bygones be bygones. This is going to be easier than you think. Now move this over here for me. Don't do that. Are you ready?
Goodbye, Ollie.
Goodbye, Stanley. 1, 2, what?
I just thought of something. Listen, you remember once you were telling me that we passed away, we'd come back on this earth in some other form? Like a bird or a dog or a horse or something?
Oh, you mean reincarnation?
Yeah, that's it. Well, now that we're going to go, what would you like to be when you come back?
I don't know. I've never given it much thought. I like horses. I guess I'd like to come back as a horse.
Huh.
What would you like to be when you come back?
Oh, I'd rather come back as myself. I always got along swell with me.
You can't come back as yourself. Now, come on and stop wasting my time. Are you ready?
Goodbye, Ollie.
Goodbye. 1, 2.
Ollie, just thought of something. Do you think the water's deep enough? Maybe you might bump your head if it isn't just...
Well, I never thought of that.
Termites. Hey, we can't jump in there. There's a fella watching us.
Well, that bit worked pretty well, but there must be something else you can do with cement. And they did it 3 years earlier in Our Relations.
Good hard now, Tiny. All right, take him out. Okay.
There is some debate whether Stan and Ollie or stuntmen did this scene, but no matter who did it, you have to imagine they were a bit apprehensive.
Stop that crying. Now, this is your last chance. If you don't tell us where that ring is, over you go. How can we tell you if we don't remember? Maybe this will help you remember.
When we return, the 1936 Academy Award winner.